I would argue that the pauses in Chief of War are, in a sense, crucial, even if it means defending the show's comparatively slow pacing in the final few episodes. They are there to let you to take a moment to reflect on the event and its significance rather than jumping to the next one without considering all the nuances. One thing is certain despite everything that stands in the path of Kamehameha's peace movement. Despite all the odds, the right choice must be made repeatedly. Kamehameha makes numerous modifications in the 6th episode of Chief of War. However, the odds against him aren't going to change. Why does Iana believe Kupuohi is erring? Keoua had no intention of concealing the assault. He desired a spectacular display of the fervor that burns in his veins. In actuality, Kamehameha's unwillingness to acknowledge that his cousin would act in such a manner speaks more to his own ethics than Keoua's. However, even he is aware that there is no other motive for harming Kohala. Though advising his leader to get ready for war doesn't make Iana pleased, he is merely acting in accordance with his moral convictions. Moku agrees with him. However, Kamehameha's counsel has a stronger voice than men's. Kohala politics has benefited greatly from Kahehumanu's intellectual prowess. Additionally, as the first female Kahehumanu has created a space where the voice of reason is not disregarded simply because the speaker is a woman, giving her a voice in issues of governance and conflict. Kupuohi has also been fierce in her own domain. She therefore has the confidence of a woman who has never turned to males for guidance or solutions when she stands up for peace in the court of men and volunteers to try to persuade Keoua to declare a truce. This might not sit well with people like Moku. However, Kamehameha found that women's counsel is considerably more sensitive than men's. Kamehameha never takes a passive approach. Additionally, his advocacy for women's inclusion in the political discussion around Hawaii's future's snark is loud. Kupuohi puts more faith in Keoua's ability to think rationally than Iana does. Although he may be correct, Iana's ideas are clearly influenced by the cynicism that his trip to Zamboanga has given him. The pants he still wears at home and the rifle he carries with him are meant to give Kupuohi the impression that Iana has become a little too much like the Paleskin. Even Kupuohi makes fun of Iana for the indications of his Europeanness when he and a gun-wielding Iana visit Keoua to try to reason with Keoua. However, Iana is not a pet of the Europeans. He's afraid of the debris that follows when they aim for locations. His paranoia, which is actively controlling his words and behavior, has nearly replaced his terror. That kind much ruins any chance that Kupuohi will be able to make peace during her meeting with Keoua. Because she is originally from Keoua, her optimism was dependent on this. Keoua, however, will Keoua be betrayed by Kahekili? Compared to the last king of Hawaii, Keoua had significantly higher goals. However, whereas Kalaniʻopuʻu was naturally admired by his people, Keoua seeks to gain that respect by violence and bloodshed. Keoua's specialty is violence and fear. Although he has walked confidently away from Kupuohi and Iana's offer of peace, he has little chance of defeating Kamehameha if he does face him. Even his mother is aware of that. Kamehameha will be unbeatable due to the combined power of the Europeans' red-mouthed weapons and the blessings of the battle god. She is not incorrect. Keoua should be terrified of Kamehameha's army's alertness when Tony introduces them to the world of firearms. However, his mother has a solution for him. She encourages him to turn to his enemy's enemy, Kahekili. Although Keoua has no issue with Kahekili, Kalaniʻopuʻu was never very fond of him. Keoua can only turn to Kahekili's ominous altar when all other options have been exhausted. Naturally, Kahekili is ecstatic to learn that the strongest kingdom he seeks to subjugate has a weakness. However, he is even more thrilled at Keoua's offer. Pledging loyalty in return for troops to vanquish Kamehameha in combat. Keoua was aware of his protection. Kamehameha would render Hawaii virtually impenetrable if Kahekili murdered Keoua. Keoua's arrogance prevents him from seeing that Kahekili won't require him once he vanquishes Kamehameha. He is sending Apanui, his most insane warrior, to command his army in Keoua's conflict with Kamehameha because of this. Apanui shares Kahekili's values as a warrior. He intends to carry out his king's unspoken will. Perhaps Keoua just signed his own death warrant by supporting Kahekili and upsetting his cousin. Apanui intends to disembowel him as soon as Kamehameha is finished. Of course, males can't really touch Kamehameha, who live under the rule of violence. Despite his strength, he only understands how to take care of himself because of his empathy and resolve to reign with kindness. His wife, Kahekili, is the only other individual he fully confides in for his and Hawaii's well-being. Kamehameha has begun to doubt his future due to Kaiana's desperate desire for war. However, Kamehameha will continue to believe in Kaiana's position in their aspirations for a united Hawaii as long as Kahekili stands up for him. Despite his regular level of anxiety, Moku fears that Kahekili would be held accountable for any future repercussions between Kaiana and Kamehameha. However, Kaiana may become indispensable to Kamehameha due to the ship that sails to the Hawaii coast at the end of Chief of War Episode 6. Humanitarian service is not Captain Metcalf's goal. The fear of colonialism is evoked by his trip to Hawaii. He wants to be in charge of the islands. Kaiana is the only one who can defend his home from outside threats because he is the only one who truly understands the Paleskin people. The fact that Metcalf